In Pursuit of Truth, this is your host, Sir Patrick Mack. We are back after a few minor technical difficulties, but all is good, and we're back on the trail of pursuitude. We're talking about Long Beach, California today. We're talking about movies, and we're talking about one of my favorite things in the whole wide world, dogs. I don't think that dog was expecting me to be talking about them right at this moment, but yes, dogs. I like dogs. That should be pretty apparent by now. John, what does a dog sound like? Yes, that is accuracy in reporting right there, ladies and gentlemen. But first, let's talk about China. In particular, Hong Kong and the LBC. Looks like they're saying LBC. It's a Long Beach port. Hong Kong firm sells interest in California Port Terminal, report says. It's from UPI from May 1st. A Hong Kong-based company has sold its interest in the Long Beach Container Terminal in California, following U.S. government concerns of China-related national security, according to a newspaper in Hong Kong. Let me just read that again. Following U.S. government concerns of China-related national security, according to a newspaper in Hong Kong. The South China Morning Post reported Orient Overseas, owned by the family of former Hong Kong chief executive Tung Chee-hwa, has sold its ownership at the container port to Macquarie Infrastructure and Real Assets, an unlisted U.S. fund. The fund is managed by Australian financial giant Macquarie Group. The $1.78 billion sale is expected to net Orient Overseas a profit of $1.29 billion, according to a stock exchange filing obtained by the Post. Orient Overseas began operations in 1969 when Hong Kong was a British colony. 20 years after the handover, it was sold to Costco, a Chinese state-owned shipping firm, in July 2017. Hey, there's another HRC China connection right there, because HRC signs books at Costco. Yep. That's a true story. Costco owns 75% of Orient Overseas. U.S. security agencies were concerned Costco's indirect ownership of the Hong Kong firm could have an impact on the Long Beach port, the second largest port by volume. The port sale comes at a time when Washington and Beijing continue to negotiate an ongoing trade dispute. A U.S. delegation led by Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin traveled to Beijing and made progress on difficult issues, including key market access and rolling back on punitive tariffs, the Wall Street Journal reported Wednesday. Mnuchin said on Twitter the talks will continue in Washington next week. Trump has said a trade deal with China should be reached in the next 2 weeks and that he is willing to walk away, Bloomberg reported Wednesday. Okay, so this is a really big deal in my opinion, and I think also a big score for the good guys. I'll try to highlight a few reasons why, although there are many. But first of all, we know that the Long Beach port is a massive port. It's one of the biggest in the nation. And we also know that our problem with human trafficking oftentimes comes through these big ports. But before we even get to any of that kind of stuff, let me take you back to 1991 when then President George Bush put the military base at Long Beach, the naval station, put it on the closure list. And that was going to be a big deal because there was going to be a lot of lost jobs, civilian and military. Bill Clinton officially actually did it in 1993, a couple years later, but they lost tons and tons of money. And I'm not really sure California has ever really been able to come back from that. A couple years after that, 1995-ish, the Clinton-Gore campaign kind of stepped in and made sure that this China Ocean Shipping Company got a sweet deal. And there was a lot of pushback, particularly from the U.S. military, the Secretary of the Navy. But they got it through, and the Secretary of the Navy actually formally turned the base over to the city of Long Beach. From there, the Port of Long Beach leased the property to China Ocean Shipping Company. And of course, that's run by the Chinese government. And that's how you get all these Chinese shipping containers going back and forth. Now, there's obviously lots of problems with that. It's a military base, and that compromises a lot of national security. And of course, we already know about the problems with human trafficking. And if you're not familiar with how that works with our U.S. ports, please check out my video, Connecting a Crisis. It basically focuses on the Florida side of it, but it's the same thing over here here at the Port of Long Beach. And the Port of Long Beach is a place that Q has long wanted us to turn our attention to. As a matter of fact, not too long ago, even posted a picture near Long Beach over there at Seal Beach. So this is a Navy property that got sold to the city, tons of military jobs lost, and then all of a sudden you get Chinese ships going in. Seems like that would be a great place for the Chinese to put their parts on military ships, at least in the transition period, right? So this was all forced by a court order, and I think this all went through right around 1997. But Clinton and Gore had a massive stake in this. So ever since taking over this port, the Chinese have had lots of problems within the Long Beach area. Those of you who live in the Oakland area might remember the incident with the Russian AK-47s getting smuggled in. I think that was in the late 90s. I'm sorry, I don't remember the exact year, but that was a really, really big deal. They got popped in 1992 for trying to avoid U.S. tariffs. 1993, the Navy was actually shadowing some of their vehicles, warning that they were carrying chemical weapons materials. So lots of different things going on. And back then, CIA Director Robert Gates had even warned about this too, saying that if you turn over an American port facility to a foreign-owned company, you're going to have lots and lots of problems, and that needs to be vetted basically through national security agencies. And of course, we know that that's not how this went down, right? So lots and lots of problems. Now, keep in mind, I'm referring to this China Ocean Shipping Company was sort of the company that let it all in, but this article was actually talking about Orient Overseas. Now, Orient Overseas has also had their own issues over the years. As a matter of fact, they got raided. And this was back in 2017 from Antitrust Update. Media outlets have reported that the U.S. Department of Justice raided the Maritime Industries Box Club meeting, which is more formally known as the meeting of the International Council of Container Ship Operators. Box Club meetings include the CEOs of all major container lines, and even though the meeting locations are not publicly disclosed, the DOJ managed to serve subpoenas in mid-March at the San Francisco meeting, including top executives at, listen to this, AP Moller Maersk, Evergreen, the Orient Overseas Container Line, and Hapag-Lloyd. Notably, the subpoena recipients are not U.S.-based companies. The DOJ may have used the Box Club meetings as an opportunity to exercise its subpoena power over foreign entities. Okay, so it says that the subpoena recipients were not U.S.-based companies. Interesting enough. Now, I don't want to get too far off track here, but I do think this is all connected somehow. And if you're like me, you probably realize that Evergreen caught your ear. After all, that was the United States Secret Service name for Hillary Rodham Clinton. In this particular case, it seems to be this group here, the Evergreen Association, and they do all sorts of stuff. Let me read you their mission statement. To serve expectant mothers with free pregnancy testing, ultrasounds, HIV and STD testing, and counseling, prenatal care, pro-life decision counseling, friendship, clergy referrals, legal and immigration aid, mother and baby supplies, and referrals for maternity housing, adoption, and whatever is needed for those in the New York City areas and suburbs. And those are Manhattan, Brooklyn, Queens, the Bronx, Jersey City, and White Plains. So I'm not familiar with this group, but in looking at a few different sites, it seems like they are fairly pro-life, and they are constantly talking about how New York is the abortion capital of the United States, and how it's a big deal for them to get their deal out there, right? So what would be so wrong with this? Well, they were mentioned in these subpoenas along with this Orient Overseas. Now, the reason I bring it up is because we have this here. This is a series of different appeals between the Evergreen Association and the state of New York, and I want to take you right here. Following a series of public hearings that examined the practices of centers such as those operated by the petitioner, the Attorney General of the state of New York launched an investigation into whether the petitioner was engaging in the unauthorized practice of medicine through conduct including locating its centers in medical buildings and making them look like medical offices, requesting the medical histories of its clients, performing pregnancy tests and sonograms, estimating gestational age, and evaluating fetal health. Okay, so is that devious behavior? We're not really sure. From what I can see, it doesn't look like they engage in any actual medical practice themselves. It looks like they just do sonograms and things like that. So there's probably a fine line here. But what's really interesting is that at the time, the Attorney General of New York was one Eric Schneiderman. And nobody likes Schneiderman, former Attorney General of New York and blockade to one President Trump. He was the one that was blocking the NXIVM investigation. And he was the one causing quite a stir. And of course, he ended up running into some trouble himself, wearing a little bit of guy liner and slapping the ladies around. He didn't last very long, did he? And nobody likes Eric Schneiderman. So going back and forth with this, I haven't had time to look at it all. But it looks like he was watching their every move, which makes me wonder if Evergreen really was doing some good work after all. But there you go. Lastly, I want to point out that even though it does seem like a very good thing here that this Orient Overseas Hong Kong-based company did end up selling, they sold most of it to this Macquarie Bank, and they have had their own share of scandals. As a matter of fact, they got audited back in 2010. It's an Australian firm, and they got popped because they weren't reimbursing their clients. They were basically saying that they didn't actually technically give them financial advice and whatnot, but they had a ton of legal lawsuits in regards to that. The other group that bought some of this up was Real Assets, which is a U.S. fund. I don't know a whole bunch about it, but I did see a couple of tenuous connections to the Deutsche Bank. But either way, it is out of the hands of the Chinese, and that's where we are now. In regards to Long Beach Port, we also had this incident the other day in regards to this thwarted terrorist attack. And I'm not going to go way into that because we've already covered it. And I don't usually like to cover things twice. But if you have not caught up on that story, I suggest this right here. QAnon/news. Kick it up a notch. In Pursuit of Truth presents. And this was from April 30th, where we talk about that event there and their connections to the Long Beach Port. Let's move on for now. From Fox News, John McCain's dog drowned after head got stuck in pipe, Cindy McCain says. John McCain's dog, who died last month in Arizona, drowned after getting his head stuck in a pipe, the late senator's wife recently revealed. Burma, McCain's beloved sidekick, died on the family's property near Sedona, Cindy McCain said. When news of a dog's death was publicized last month, she described it as a freak incident. It's weird. She had never done this before. She ran into a pipe, Cindy McCain told the Arizona Republic. You know, we have a series of ponds on our property, and she ran into the pipe and she got stuck. An error occurred while retrieving the Instagram post. It might have been deleted. She added that Burma drowned and eventually her body came out the other end of the pipe. It's devastating. She was John's dog, period. And so what makes me feel better is I know she's with him now, she said of Burma. An error occurred. I don't know why they're saying that again. An error occurred while retrieving the Instagram post. It might have been deleted. Meghan McCain, daughter of the 2008 GOP presidential nominee and current co-host of ABC's The View, wrote on Instagram that the dog was absolutely and truly devoted to him. All right, so of course, obviously, it's always a sad story when somebody loses their dog, but the reason I bring this up is because very interesting. Dog's a dog that belongs to John McCain, who died on Dog Day. And if you've been following QAnon kind of foresaw that from some of their tweets saying every dog has its day. Now, I suppose you could argue that John McCain technically died on the 25th and Dog Day is the 26th. However, the timing would be right that in some parts of the world, it was already Dog Day. So why would we be talking about this dog, Burma, which, by the way, is now known as Myanmar?
Got a flashback aside, take you back, yeah.
Taking you back to 2017, McCain drops plan to expand U.S. military ties with Myanmar. The Republican chairman of the Senate Armed Services Committee is canning plans to expand U.S. military ties with Myanmar because of its persecution of minority Rohingya Muslims. Senator John McCain said in a statement Tuesday that he had hoped for greater U.S. engagement with Myanmar after it transitioned to civilian government last year, ending decades of military rule in the Southeastern Asian nation. But he says circumstances have changed, with 370,000 Rohingya fleeing violence and destruction in the last month in what the United Nations has described as textbook example of ethnic cleansing. McCain says the international community has called upon civilian leader Aung San Suu Kyi to stop the violence and hold human rights abusers accountable, but there has been no action to date. And of course, McCain was also calling for these two journalists to be released, and they just were recently released as of just another day or so so ago. So I'm not really sure if that's the connection to the dog name, if that's why they're putting that name out there. But this dog story seems to be gaining a lot of coverage for some reason. Now, I just pointed out, and we've talked at great length about this. We're not going to do it today, but QAnon was talking about dogs, and it seemed to be that Q was foreshadowing John McCain's death. And we also had this tweet from back in November 14th, 2018 from James, nobody's homie Comey. Our dog Benji died this afternoon because he was a rescue. We didn't know his age today, except very old. He was a friend to an entire big family, as only a dog can be. Goodbye, old soul. Okay, could have just been a dead dog. I found the entire big family reference to be very cryptic. And I also want to point out that a very old, typical Masonic reference is that when people will ask your age, you just say that you are very old. That's another way of letting people know what you're affiliated with. So this was a very cryptic tweet back in November of 2018. And then, of course, not too long after that, in December, we had the death of George H.W. Bush, who passed away at 94. We also had another interesting dog tweet from the January 18th. Donna Brazil. Rip, boo, the world's cutest dog has died. And this was from BuzzFeed, which oddly enough was connected with the FISA D-Class information, Michael Isikoff and Christopher Steele, that BuzzFeed. Could be that Donna Brazil was just a dog lover, but very interesting that she tweeted about this in January 18th, not too long after RBG had hurt herself falling, where she had broken some ribs, and that had happened in November 9th of 2018. And we've still yet to hear what has happened to Ruth Bader Ginsburg. So lots of cryptic dog tweets. And it looks like Elizabeth Dances with Wolves Warren is getting in on the dog tweets, saying he's a very good boy, 15/10 in fact, and it's his first birthday. Sign the card and wish our consumer watchdog a happy birthday. Well, it's very strange to have somebody like Elizabeth Warren posting one of these promoted tweets here, and it would just take you to her site, which is this right here, just to wish Bailey a happy birthday. It looks like I got to register and give my zip in order to sign Bailey's card. Seems very strange indeed. And considering this came out on the 1st of May, which would be 6/5/19, I'm not really sure what you're talking about. 15/10. It even says on the card, happy birthday, Bailey, 15/10. Good birthday. Boy, it seems very strange. Now, I'm not a numbers guy, as you guys know. The only thing that I saw in this is that if you wanted to take 5 into 15 3 times, 5 into 10 2 times, would be 32. Could this be a Skull and Bones reference? I'm not really sure, but I think this the fact that she is promoting this promoted tweet, that is definitely strange. Now, I want to just point out that when I did a thread on this the other day, it wasn't a great thread, but I did do a thread on this the other day. The first thing that struck me when I actually first saw this tweet was the very first line. He's a very good boy, all capitalized, by the way. And what it reminded me of was this from 2013. Via terror plot, suspect a very good boy, mom says. The mother of one of the 2 suspects accused of trying to carry out an Al-Qaeda-supported plot to derail a Via Rail passenger train for almost a year doesn't believe the charges against her son, saying he is a very good boy and a genius who loves to study. All right, so the reason why this stuck with me is because even though this is from CBC News from Canada, there were actually tons of outlets that kept using this same phrase, a very good boy, and that's actually why it stuck in my brain. So is this a shout out for some sort of move for the deep state to do something? I'm not really sure. I'm just showing you the links here and showing you what I think it could be. But this was the very first thing that stuck out in my mind when she mentioned very good boy. And it looks like all the Democrats are showing off the dogs as of late. And this article was pointing out that President Trump is one of the first presidents to forego having a dog. Not sure if that's significant or not, but let's meet some of these pets. Meet the pets. Dogs are the presidential contenders and the tale of Francis's turtle. And the first one belongs to Dances with Wolves Warren. There's Bailey. Gotta admit, it's a pretty cute little dog. Artemis and Rosie, belonging to Francis O'Rourke. Artemis looks somehow mournful in every single shot she's featured in throughout the Vanity Fair spread. Yeah, that's because she belongs to Francis O'Rourke. Truman and Buddy belonging to Mayor Pete Buttigieg. What's wrong with your eye there? Pretty cute dogs. Champ and Major belonging to Joe Biden. There you go. Maple belonging to Senator Kristen Bilderbrand. Sky belonging to John Hickenlooper. Baron Buckeye belonging to Tim Ryan. How about John Delaney's dog, Mimi? Eric Swalwell's dog, Penny. Michael Bennett's dog, Pepper. And it looks like that's about it right there. So could be just everybody showing off their dog, but I find these tweets and this particular article to be interesting timing. You tell me. Finally, let me leave you with this article from Sarah Carter. CNN lay off hundreds. Brian Stelter spin them as voluntary. CNN says roughly 100 employees have accepted voluntary buyouts a month after an overhaul by parent company AT&T. Brian Stelter also confirmed the rumor, trying to spin it as hundreds of staffers leaving CNN as voluntary buyouts. In a tweet, Brian Stelter said, "There's a rumor making the rounds today about big impending layoffs at CNN. A CNN spokeswoman is knocking it on the record. No layoffs. There were voluntary buyouts throughout the organization, and about 100 people opted for it." So, essentially, they were layoffs. All right, kids, that's all I got for you as of now. I am working on a sort of a longer burn video for you, and that should be hopefully coming out shortly. Not sure if it's going to be today or tomorrow, but we shall see. But that's all I got for you for now. As always, if you like this video, please click like, share, and subscribe. Thanks to all of you who do that already. I really appreciate that. If you're new to my channel, please understand that from time to time you're going to get unclicked, unliked, and unsubscribed. Do me a favor, just check back, re-click yourself, and together, you and I will defeat the man. And the man is the deep state. And the deep state is the man. Except you're also the man. You're the man. I'm the man. Even if you're not a man, you're the man. Anyway, my alternate links are down below to my Gab, my Real.video, which is now Brighteon.com, my BitChute, and of course, I'm over here at IPOT 1776. That's at IPOT 1776. All those links are down below. If you'd like to send me some information, you can email me. My email is down below. And if you'd like to support the channel, my Patreon link is down below also. And if you're way old school, I've also got a P.O. box down there. All of those links are down below in the video description. All right, kids. This is Sir Patrick Mack, and until next time, stay funky!